Thanks for watching. Happy New Year. Let's have a look at my Losi LMT. I finally got some parts in that I was waiting for a really long time. I installed them and also got a few questions about the electronics. So let's go over what I did and also over what you guys actually asked. In the front, I installed a Reeves RC Raw 500 steering servo. This is a really high torque, high spec, high quality steering servo. And for that reason I wanted to have one in this Losi LMT. Now it does come with this servo saver, which you can install on a servo of your choice, as long as that choice is limited to something that has a 23 tooth spline. Like for example a Spectrum servo. I couldn't get my hands on the Spectrum servo, plus I really wanted to have a Reeves Raw 500 in this build. So I decided to drop one in anyway. And what I did is I used one of the Reeves RC aluminum servo horns, which accidentally fits in really nicely with the anodization on the chassis. So this really blends in well with whatever is going on the sway bar parts, but also on those twin vertical plates. So that is cool. That part is all set. If I do need a servo saver in the future, I'm pretty sure that the HPI one actually fits, the one that they have for the HPI Venture. So that will be pretty easy to install that, as long as I can get a hold of it. Now in order to get to the part where you can actually install the motor, you can just try to finick it in from the back side. That works perfectly fine, but because you guys asked me a couple of questions about motors and about how they would actually fit, especially 8-scale motors, I wanted to have full access. For that reason I wanted to have this battery tray completely opened up. Now if you want to do that, there's a pin that goes through here, through that rubber clamp. You need to take that pin out. Without it you do not have proper access to those screw heads, and you're going to strip them out, guaranteed. I don't guarantee a lot, but I can guarantee you that that will be a really frustrating experience if you don't take that bolt out. The same goes for this lower part of the roll cage. Just take those couple of screws out so you can actually dismantle this part of the roll cage. That way you have proper access to that gear cover. You can take that off and you can see exactly what you're doing. I installed the 14 tooth included pinion. Also when testing several different setups just to see how it would work. From the top of my head you can fit anything from a 12 tooth to a 16 tooth pinion. And that diameter is only limited by the fact that that gear cover has a piece of plastic that it threads into. So that avoids that you can go anything bigger than 16 teeth. Which is perhaps a bit of a pity, but then again you don't need anything larger than that. Let's go over what I found and over some of the options. I installed the Spectrum Firma ESC. You can see that over here. This is the ESC that you would also find installed on the Ready to Run version. The reason I'm making this video is if you have the roller like I have, most likely you don't like the Ready to Run electronics that I'm going to use anyway. Just to see how they perform, because I know that from looking at all the Ready to Run footage, it actually performs well. But most likely if you do buy the roller, you want to install something different than this Firma 130 amp ESC and this brushless motor, which is also made by Spectrum, 3150 kV, 36 millimeters in diameter, 60 millimeters long. You don't want this in all likeliness. You know why? Because if you would buy this and the roller, you're already exceeding the price point of the Ready to Run truck, and then you still need to have a receiver, you still need to have a steering servo, and you still need a body. So at that point it really doesn't make any sense to go do that. So most likely if you do buy the roller, you want to have some sort of different 10 scale setup in here, perhaps a censored setup. That would totally make sense, I think, to have that extra control in the lower RPM range. Or you want to have an 8-scale setup, which is of course where things really get lively and become fun. Now this Firma setup, this is actually rated for 4S, but seeing that the LMT is such a heavy truck, you can only run it on 3S. Now it has plenty of get-go on 3S, so there's plenty of power and has plenty of speed. But I can imagine, like I said, you want to have perhaps some more control on the lower RPMs. For that reason, if you want to install a sensor motor, I can imagine that you would go for example, one of these. This is a Castle 1415. I'm demonstrating this with Castle motors just so you have a bit of an idea of what's possible, and that's also stuff that I have in stock. You could of course also pick a different brand like Hobbywing or what have you, but these are all sensor motors. Well, I know from experience that these are really good, and just for test fitting purposes I had these laying around, so it was really great to go and test the head with these. This motor is also 36 millimeters in diameter. This is quite a bit longer, so this is not 60 millimeters long, but this motor is actually 70 millimeters long. This is also a lower kV, this 1415 motor by Castle, so this is a 2400 kV motor instead of a 3150. But I do guess that you could run this one if you would have it, for example, with a Mamba X, that you could run this motor on 4 cells. Just keep an eye on your temperature. Running this on a 4S makes it very comparable in RPMs to running the Spectrum motor on 3S. The Spectrum motor, 3150 kV on 3S, would equal, I think, the RPMs of this 2400 kV motor on a 4S. There's a formula for that. If you are not familiar with how the kV actually translates to wheel speed and to RPMs, if you put 1 volt on this 2400 kV motor, you would get 2400 revolutions per minute. So the more volts you add, so the more cells you add, the more RPM you get. And there's a maximum to absolutely everything. Same goes here. And there's also a weight limit to everything. Theoretically, you could even run this one, this 1415 on 6S. We're not going to do that with a truck this big, but I'm thinking with 4S you should be pretty good. That's where it becomes, I think, more interesting, is where we go look at 8-scale motors. This is Castle's most popular 8-scale motor, and I'm not going to talk about this one yet because this motor is the larger brother of the smaller 8-scale motor that Castle also has. This is a 1515. You need to imagine this, but 7 millimeters shorter, and then you would have a 1512 Castle motor. The diameter on this can is 42 millimeters. This can is 75 millimeters long, so this is slightly longer than the 1415 that you've just seen. But its shorter version, its shorter brother, is the 1512. I know it becomes really complicated here. 42 millimeters in diameter, 68 millimeters long, and that one comes in 2 different kV variations. That one comes in the 1800 kV, which I think would be a bit on the slow side perhaps with that stock pinion, or it comes in a 2650 kV, and I think that for this truck could actually be the most interesting option of those Castle offerings. So the 2650 kV, that one you would also be able to run on 4S. If you would put it in a really lightweight buggy, I think you could even get away with running it on 6 cells. But 4 cells is really on the safe side, and it has plenty of power to get this big and heavy truck moving. If you would combine that, for example, with Castle's Mamba Monster X, you would have a really nice, durable, censored setup that you can play around with. The motor that I have over here, this is a Castle 1515. I know bigger is better, and well, in this case, perhaps that applies as well. This is a 1515 2200 kV motor. This is the most common 8-scale motor that Castle sells. This is also a motor that I use in a ton of my trucks and rides. I use this in my Pro MT 4x4. I use 2 of these actually in my Yeti XXL. I use 1 of these in my Yeti XL. So this has found its way into plenty of setups. I recently put 1 of these in my Arma Kraton EXB. I'm not sure if you remember that. So this is a very versatile, very powerful motor that you could actually run on 6S if you choose to do so. So if you want to go completely bananas and really sort of like stretch the boundaries of where the warranty will take you, then this might be the ticket, because 6S in this truck, it might already be overkill. Now, despite this being quite a bit bigger, because the diameter compared to what I put in here, that is stock, that stock diameter is 36 millimeters, this one 42 millimeters, the stock length 60 millimeters, this one 75 millimeters, but it fits in there with great ease. I have taken a few very sloppy close-ups of me test fitting it, but it surpasses that second twin vertical plate that actually has a nice notch in it with ease, and you even have half an inch to an inch extra on the end bell of the motor. So there's plenty of room to even fit a bigger one in there. So in case Castle ever comes out with, say, a 1517 or maybe even a 1520, I think you would be able to fit that in here as well. I might be giving away something over there in terms of what's to come, but we can't be sure about that. Combine this with a Mamba Monster X, and again you have a really nice durable setup that you can really play around with when it comes to settings and all that. All of these are censored, all of these are well, very durable, have a ton of torque, ton of end speed, and well, I've been using them for years, so those are all great. This one, I have no doubt, this Spectrum setup, this Firma setup, I have no doubt that this will perform really well for its intended use. But again, you know, like I said, I think that if you do order the Roller LMT, that you're not going to use the stock setup just because you will find that too boring, or maybe you have something laying around. Now, for excrement and chuckles, or as other people would say, for shits and giggles, I actually also tried this huge can over here. This is Castle's 1717. Now, if you check this out, if you compare this to the 1515, you can tell that it is massive. This is actually 49 millimeters in diameter. This is, I believe it is 85 millimeters long. Also censored. This would be a 6th scale. Does this fit? Because everybody of course wants to know where the boundaries are and what you can do and where it stops being fun. This is truly where it stops being fun, because you cannot fit this. I have of course test fitted it, and you know what, it doesn't fit. You really need to break out a Dremel to kind of take away some of the cooling ribs on the motor, but also to take away a notch from the transmission case in order to just make it sit level, and even then it really doesn't feel like it's going to be a durable setup just because it's such a heavy motor. So sort of like keep it normal, stay a bit away from things that go really extreme like this 1717, stick to 1515 at the very most. I think that is a safe option. And like I said, I think in the Castle range of products, that 1512, that 2650 would be a really nice motor to run in here, in case you are looking for a different type of setup and you have purchased a roller. Now, it's really nice that I currently have all of this set up, all of this built in. This took forever to actually get here, just because you know, Christmas was also of course around the corner, and that really messed up the mail system everywhere. So the post office has been struggling, I think globally, to get stuff out timely to people. So this is actually some stuff of this. I've been waiting for it for 6 weeks, and that's also why you have not seen any LMT videos up until now. Now that this is done, I can finally decide what body I'm going to paint. I have actually already picked a body. It is going to be a Ford. That's all I'm going to say about it. You can guess away in the comments to see what type of Ford it is going to be. I have a really cool, close to my heart theme that I'm going to get started with, and that I'm going to have a ton of fun with. I can tell you that much already. It's going to be perhaps as fun as the Grand Theft Auto body that I did back in the day. I'll make sure that you see a close-up of that one as well. So I'm really looking forward to getting this thing painted up, buttoning it all up, and then hopefully the weather will not be so cold that it makes all the plastics brittle, and I will be able to take it out for a spin. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions about any of the products that I mentioned, so whether that be the Losi LMT, the Ready to Run, or the Roller, there will be links in the video description box, along with links to all of the Castle motors that you've seen, and also of course this really cool Firma setup by Spectrum, and of course the Reeves Raw 500 servo that I installed in the front, along with that servo horn. If you have questions, please let me know, and I will be happy to answer them if you have a bit of patience perhaps. If you wonder what body you have seen, maybe on the thumbnail, it's this this Proline body. This was an old Slash body, so this was originally intended for a Traxxas Slash. Back in the day, there was a really cool blog on Axial Racing's website where they turned the Exoterra into a Volkswagen using this Beetle body, this Slash body. So that's also what I did. I followed those steps and turned my Exoterra at the time into a Volkswagen Beetle. So I still had this body laying around because after that I actually turned my Exoterra into a King of the Hammers tribute car using a Jeep body, going completely bananas on the paintwork. So this body was sitting around, and I figured I would just throw it on the chassis, make it look a tiny bit more decorated, and also get a bit of an idea and a bit of a feel of what type of bodies are actually possible on this LMT. And I think it offers a great deal of options in being very versatile in sort of like dressing it up with different canvases. Well, I think I've waffled on more than long enough. Thank you so much for watching again. Take care, Happy New Year, and I will see you around. Stay safe, bye.
Back on.